I just was young. Is there much interaction?
Questions?
Questions?
Well, if they
Well, I mean, use Hebrews 12 and discipline. Just to open up, get people thinking.
that'd be good. So they're starting to come in. Why don't we just go ahead and take care of this? Good morning, church. That's all right, Sister Karen. It's awful hard to break up chat time, right? That's the barometer of how the church is going. So that's a welcoming noise. Appreciate y'all being here this morning. Randy Schow is going to be our speaker today. Randy was the executive director of Mountain States Children's Home, for 30 years. And so he has a lot to offer in the children's arena. And I hope that y'all appreciate Randy's message this morning. And he'll just tell you a little bit about the campus and how things is going. He'll bring the lesson the next hour for us also. And so anyway, Randy, why don't you come on over here and as custom here in Northside, we'll have a prayer together and then we'll move from here. Would you pray with me, please? Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to know more about the program at Mountain States Children's Home. We ask that you open our minds and to welcome the message that Randy brings, and we appreciate him and all of those who pour out their lives in assisting children, assisting homes that might be broken, and so anyway, dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity, and we are thankful for his trip here today, and that we absorb what we hear, and we pray all of this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen.
I want to say a couple of things. Randy has been part of our lives for, I don't know how many years, at least 30, being there in Williston. Randy's home was in Fairview, Montana, and Pat and I lived midway between Williston and Fairview, so we understand the terrain and all of this, and how Randy's family grew up in that area, and the history of the church goes back a long time out there in the prairies of Montana. So anyway, Randy, let her breathe.
Okay. Well, good morning, church. Good to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. Monty called me and asked, just talked about, asked questions about the children's home, and the church here has began to support us, and we just appreciate it. And I said I'd be glad to come down and share some things about the children's home, and so just appreciate Monty and Pat, hosting me and feeding me and taking good care of me, at their house. So, but anyway, it's just really good to be here. And Monty is so right in regards to, we're very familiar with eastern Montana, western North Dakota, and the lovely winters that we have up there that are like 30, 40 below. And, I asked him if he missed that, and I don't think he misses that real cold anyway. So, I grew up in Fairview, Montana, and it's a more rural area, and there's a lot of culture that goes along with families and things like that. My dad was a machinist and a welder and a mechanic, and I grew up with all of those things. So I rarely take my car to the shop. I usually do most of the repairs and learned all those things from my dad. And my mom was a hard worker. She was German. My dad was Norwegian. My mom was German. If you know anything about German background, they're kind of, at least in the north, they're known to be very industrious and hard workers, and that fit my mother. I had an older brother that was 3.5 years older than I was, and I mean, she would work us around the house, make sure everything was cleaned up, outside, inside, and she even took me out in the hoeing sugar beets, when I was about 11, 12 years of age, just to, teach me things in regards to making money and working, and Dad did too. And Dad was really good in regards to sharing a lot of things that I continue to use in my life, and I was just thankful for that. And my brother and I, we tended to, I would pick fights with my older brother. I'd always have to get into a fight with him all the time, it seemed like. And Mom was the major disciplinarian. Dad was, if Dad came in, he had a look to kill. I mean, did any of you have a dad that was just a matter, you knew you had pushed Mom too far? And I mean, it was amazing how I could change my attitude and straighten up and do what I needed to do if Dad was called in. But Mom was a major disciplinarian, and Mom would always just say, don't wrestle in the house, and I'd get my brother into a scissor lock, and I'd put him on, and he'd have to say, Uncle, and I just loved that because I got one up over my brother all the time. But then we had a little dog named Punky, and Punky was just a little Chihuahua rat terrier, and Punky, Mom, I remember getting a lot of spankings. I don't know if you guys ever had any spankings, but Mom had her leather strap over her bedroom door, ready for it any time, it seemed like. Punky did not like us to get a spanking, I mean, she'd be giving us, swat with the leather strap, and he was down there and grabbing that belt so that we wouldn't get to, the spanking. And I think I was around 11, and it was time for me to have my spanking, and Mom went to go get the belt, and it was gone. It wasn't on her back of her bedroom door. And she started looking around. She's, Randy, where's my belt? I said, I don't know. And I thought, oh no, now I'm really in trouble because I'm in trouble for what I did. Now I'm in trouble because she thinks I may have hid the belt. And she looked all over the house and everything. Finally, she looked underneath of the bed, and there that leather strap was just chewed to pieces. And she said, that dog chewed up my strap, my bed, and that's when I learned that, dogs are man's best friend. I never had any more spankings after that. Punky took care of that, so. And, I can make light of what my mom and dad, in regards to raising me and disciplining me. But I never felt like I was abused. I always felt like I was loved, and I knew what my mom and dad were doing to train me. And I appreciate that so much. And I remember Mom coming to me when I was 25, and I went to my mother. And I said, Mom, thank you for raising me the way you did. And I said, thank you for even spanking me the way you did. And I remember she looked kind of to the floor and pondered for a little bit, and then she looked up at me and she said, Randy, that was the nicest compliment you could have ever given me. And I think as we as parents, if we really truly love our kids, we want our kids to grow up and to do what's right and be responsible. And I really believe my mom and dad taught my brother and I that, and how important that was. And one of the things I want to share in regards to working at a children's home, I've been in childcare for 42 years, 30 at Mountain States. I see a lot of kids coming in that do not have a mom and dad that are willing to take the time to discipline their children. And a child is left alone in regards to fend for themselves. If you have your Bibles, turn to chapter 12, Hebrews chapter 12, and it talks about discipline. And Hebrews 12 starts with verse 4. And as I read this kind of hard, the auditorium here is so big, but I like to engage the people to think about how they were raised and how you were disciplined. And I might ask a few questions, and I hope you guys will chime in if you some thoughts that might come across as we read this verse. But just think about what this verse is saying, and maybe how it fits you too as when you were growing up. So verse 4 says, "In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And you have forgotten the word of encouragement that addresses you as sons. My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines those he loves, and he punishes everyone that he accepts as a son. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? And if you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children and not true sons. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? And our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they thought best. But God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it." What are some things that you think of when you read this passage and how it applies to you, how you were raised and how your parents dealt with you? Anything that stands out? I don't know if anybody dares say anything that far back or not, but when you got your last spanking? At 21. You must have needed it, I guess.
It was just one of those cases where I did nothing wrong. I was watching the niece, and she was 2 years old. She did it. I got in trouble for what she did. My best friend was there too. He got a whooping.
And he got a whooping too, right? That must have been clear up to age 21. I've never heard that before, boys. Okay, all right. Well, I hope you appreciated it. Right? Yeah. Oh, good. I appreciate that comment. Anybody else? And you probably got away with some that you did deserve, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
My dad had to say it when I got a spanking. He would say to me, he said, "Son," he said, "this is going to hurt me. It's going to hurt you." And I said, "Dad, I don't believe that." He said, "Why is that?" I said, "I've never seen you cry."
But as you got older, you realized what he was saying. It's.
When you think about that, I really believe that it hurts God when we do those things.
Amen.
That we may be just.
That is so true. That we are actually. So you may not heard that, but it's that we're probably. It hurts God when He has to discipline us. Because he wants us to do his will. He wants us, is what this passage says, to go to a life of righteousness and have peace that comes from that. How many of us like discipline? Okay, there's a few hands that come up, you're the brave ones. But if I turn to, say, well, how many of us know we need discipline? All of our hands go up. It's like it says, it's painful to go through things that, or discipline that it's painful, but it's for our good. Who does, in this passage in regards to her, who does God discipline? Those he loves. Sometimes we have to rechange our frame of mind of what we are disciplined of, what good can come from that, and how it directs us to go in the ways that God wants us to do. So important. Let me ask you this: is it easier to discipline or not discipline your children? That's kind of a quick, a trick question. maybe at first it's easier if you don't discipline your children, but the consequences later on are much harder, aren't they? And so it's easier to start disciplining at an early age and train your child the way he needs to go to create, to get them to turn. A lot of times I say at a children's home, a lot of times we put a lot of structure on, rather than him hitting rock bottom, we create a rock bottom up here rather than down here through the structure. And I think that's what we do as parents a lot of times, set structure such that it brings about, the reality of it is there's some pain, regards to where it gets the child to think, I don't want to do this anymore because there's some pain associated with it. And so we start turning behaviors before they hit rock bottom. And that's a lot of what I see at the children's home. So there's a lot of things that I could pull from this, but what I want to point out in regards to most of our kids, I'll talk about this, in sermon time too, but also here, but where our kids come from troubled family situations. And they need structure, and how important it is for a parent or someone there to guide them. And it talks about if you're not disciplined, then you are illegitimate. And what does illegitimate mean? It means you don't belong. There was no doubt in my mind who I belonged to, because I knew my parents' eyes were on me all the time, and I knew I belonged to them. And that's who they cared about, is making sure us kids were doing what we needed to do. So we knew we belonged. All right, slides. I'll try to turn around and see what's up here. This is a view of Longspeak, and the children's home is kind of down here in the lower corner. Let's go to the next slide. Hebrews 12, that's what we went through. We're located in Longmont, Colorado. There are about 35 Brotherhood children's homes in the nation. There's 9 in Texas, 3 in Oklahoma, 3 in New Mexico, and then the rest go across in the Bible Belt. We are the most northwest. There's nothing up north of us or west of us as far as within the Brotherhood of the children's home. So we're kind of in a mission field in regards to where the children's home. We're very unique in that sense, because our state just said, they say, well, you guys just do things differently. Well, we don't depend on any state dollars. We run on operation on donations, and we just don't get into dealing with state kids because there's a lot of things that are required that we don't believe that we could do. So we want to be a referral source to, if you know of any children that need help, if you know about us, we want to be an extension to the church, because the church is our backbone in what we do. So next slide. Here's a picture kind of where I came to work for the children's home 30 years ago. No one was out in regards to, networking with churches. So if I headed south, there's a lot of children's homes and churches. I'm just thankful you guys help us, because having a Texas church help us, it means an awful lot. Monty and I know when you go farther north, as far as churches of Christ are few and far between, and they're small. But I started networking with the churches. You can see Colorado up to the north and northwest. So it's not uncommon for me to drive 800 miles to go speak at a congregation of a size of 30 or 40, because it's just, there aren't a lot of large churches of Christ. So it's been a little harder, but God has been so good in helping us to do what we do. So we kind of network, not so much out California, a little bit of Nevada, but it's more all the farther northern states. Next slide. Where do our kids come from? They all come from troubled family situations. That's just the reality of the child. Why is the child being placed? Things aren't going well. There's chaos in the family, dysfunction. And, you take a look at, almost all of them come from broken home. I mean, I've been in child care for 42 years, and man, there couldn't be about 10, 15 families that are actually intact families placing their child. Most all come from broken homes. Abandonment, neglect, abuse. Most of our referrals come from single parents, single moms. We've kind of fit a niche from age 10, 11 and on up. We don't get a lot of referrals for younger kids, but a single mom has managed up until puberty, and that's when things go crazy. They don't have parenting skills. They don't have emotional support. They don't have the financial support. And they're trying to be a buddy to their child, and that doesn't work. You need to be a parent. You need to set structure. It is so important for them. So that's a lot of where our kids come from, a single parent calling up, can you save my child? I don't know what to do. In 2019, we had 1,000 people call in seeking placement for their children. COVID kind of messed all that up, but I mean, 1,000 people. We're a small agency. We can care for 24 kids, but we had that many people calling in seeking help for their kids. A lot of them, a good half of them are beyond the scope of what we can do in regards to our program, and others, they need other programs that are more geared to meeting their needs. Next, all of them are private placement. Like I said, we don't take any state-placed kids. What are the kids going through? They're all wounded. And I'm going to talk about that in our sermon in regards to they're angry. All of the kids that come in, they're angry because they want a mom and dad and a security in their home. How many of us want to have that security when we, in even our adult lives? No, but they all feel cheated. They want mom and dad. I mean, they want that security. And they're all wounded, and they definitely have trust issues in regards. It takes a while for them to allow us to build a relationship with them. So let's go to the next slide here. One of the things that we did here a few years ago, we sat down and we just thought, what is it that makes us unique? What makes us different? And we were talking about it, and the person that we were working with, as a consultant, just trying to redefine our website, doing different things to convey what is it that we do. And what kept coming up, he said, you keep saying you provide a deeper level of care. And I take a look at, well, that's probably true. And I'll go through why we say that. But the biggest thing is because we're spiritual based. Without God, I mean, that's the backbone of what we do versus a secular agency, is that we are Christian oriented and we want to bring the kids to know God and know Christ. So we looked at Luke 2:52. This is where Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. These are the 4 pillars of regards to what we do and what we offer for helping the children. Next slide. So you take a look at wisdom. Next slide. We started an on-ground school back in 98. My wife was the one, she was a teacher, and I just said, "Hun," I said, "we really need to start an on-ground school." And so she stepped up and started the on-ground school. And what we find is we'd send kids to the public school, and within 2 days, they're like magnets to other kids who are not doing well at school. If they're skipping class or whatever, and they were behind in their academics, and we just fought that all the time. So we started the on-ground school, cut out all that negative peer group, so we had total control of the environment that they're in. Next slide. This is the gym and the school. This is the front part of that building I had showed you is the school, a classroom. This is my wife with the students there. We have 24 kids we can keep in care. We've had up to 18 in our on-ground school. Next slide. This is another picture of the kids and the teacher and my wife. Next slide. We did a 12-year study after we started this on-ground school. We did a 12-year study in regards to, we do a pre-test and a post-test to find out, how are we really helping these kids? Are we getting them caught up? And we found out the average improvement was 3.7 grade levels in academic achievement in 1 year, which changed their whole outlook on life, feeling like when they come in, they're kind of like, I feel stupid and dumb, I can't do this, so they wouldn't do their homework. But we held them accountable, and my wife didn't like to travel with me because she would not be there teaching. She says, if I'm gone, they miss 3 to 4 days of school teaching, and I need to be there to get them caught up. So we get them caught up to be mainstreamed back into. Right now we have it's a Christian school. They ask us, why aren't your kids going to a Christian school? So we have our kids in our school for a year. It's a transitional school. We get them caught up. We had been sending them to public school. A Christian school came to us and said, why aren't your kids going to our Christian school? I said, money. It costs money to send kids to a private school. They said, what happens if we would find scholarships through our community? So they had other churches, they had other individuals who were paying for scholarships for our kids to go to their Christian school, which really just helped continue teaching the same things that we as far as a godly life and about Christ. So God has just opened up doors like that. It's just fun to watch God work that way. So next slide. National graduation rate in the United States is 82%. In Colorado, in the Colorado foster care system, only 30%. Is that 30%? I think it was 24. They dropped it. Dropped at 24% graduate from high school. If they are in our program, we work hard to get them back home in a year and a half, and try to strengthen the family. I'll talk about that. But if they end up staying in their program, they will graduate. We've had 100% graduate with an accredited degree, which is tremendous. You think of these are kids who really that are in foster care. Next slide. Stature, helping them grow. We hire members of the Church of Christ. Our cottages, you can go through 2 or 3 pictures here. These are the different houses, the cottages. And go one more. And one more. There we go. But the home was started in 1960. And so you see a lot of the older houses here. 6 years ago, we built a house that was more like a habitat house. We had a lot of people come in and volunteer for the community. It was just tremendous in regards to people. When I came to the home, people would say, well, we know you're out there, but we don't know anything about you. That has totally changed. I mean, people, now you go to the community and they say, oh, Mountain States Children's Home, we just love what you do. And we've really been able, and Longmont's about a town of about 100,000. So the word is getting out, and I'll show you more in regards to what we do, how to get out into the community. But here, this house was built probably, we're looking at probably 6-7 years ago. And go to the next slide. What we did is, before we buttoned up all the walls and put the insulation and sheetrock on, we asked the kids, would you like to go over there and write scriptures and prayers to the kids, on the walls for all the kids that were going to come through the children's home and through this house. They spent 2.5 hours writing, all over the walls. And it was just really a cool event in regards to, and we didn't tell them what to write. They were the ones that wrote. One of them wrote, as you walk into the front door of this house, right in front, she wrote, the first step is the hardest. You can imagine how hard it is to go to a children's home, to leave your friends, to leave your family. And then she went on, she was baptized and went and graduated, went through our program and able to return back home with her parents. But that first step, you can take a look at anything that we approach and is hard, becoming a Christian. That first step to be baptized, can be a hard step, but you know that if you do that, then you have to change your life, and there's other things that follow. And that's what I see a lot of our kids coming into the children's home. That first step is hardest, but then once they make that step, they start just making all kinds of progress. Next step, slide. This we have CrossFit trainers that came out. They volunteered. They were not members of the church. They come out and go to the next one. They bought about $50,000 worth of equipment because they loved working with our kids, and now we have one of our counselors is trained in that, and it's a Malou type therapy. Basically, he does a workout with the kids, and then he sits down and he does a kind of a processing. Okay, you went through this hardship. How can you apply that to our life? Because life, we have a lot of hardships in life, and just trying to bring a spiritual aspect of in our lives. How do we handle it? What kind of choices that will be good for us? So the next slide, there we go. This is in our gym. We built a gym in 2008, and we have mission trips for youth come up. You can see up on the stage area is where the boys will stay, the girls stay in the school, which is in front of this building. And if you look at, you can see the basketball goals there. And when we built that, we didn't have enough money to buy the basketball goals. We had the gym, but no goals. And I thought we'd buy some of these cheapy, ones that you see in driveways, and they're always falling down, and you fill them with sand or water, and they blow over. But I thought, well, inside of the gym, we can get by with that until we get some goals. And so we contacted the Denver Nuggets Foundation and said, would this be something that'd be really good for us to apply for, that we need some basketball goals in our gym? And they said, you called at the right time. We're getting rid of our practice gym goals. Would you like to have those? I mean, these are the real things. I mean, I mean, they're on their practice gym. They brought them out, set them up, and they said, well, make sure you tell all the kids that Michael Jordan and Shaq and all those guys have dunked on these hoops. And that was a pretty cool thing for a while. And then after a few, well, now if you have a new kid coming in, you say, yeah, Michael Jordan and Shaq, they all dunked on these hoops, and they'll say, well, who are they? It's just kind of, oh, bummer. It's just, but they're the official thing, more than what we ever would have ever, bought. And God blessed us with these goals. It's kind of neat. Next slide. In favor with God. Go ahead. We're under the eldership of the Longmont Church of Christ. Again, like I said, church, the spiritual aspect is just the core of what we do. So they all attend the Longmont Church of Christ. They're involved in youth activities, devotionals, and different things like that. Our church is, we're probably around 300. It's probably one of the larger churches in as far as going north. And we also have a medical clinic. You probably can't see it, but there's a medical clinic that the church has started also that have about hundreds of people come through every week in regards to providing services. So it's a pretty unique church that's going on there. But next slide. Youth groups coming out. We encourage youth groups to participate and do devotionals with our kids because we want them to experience other Christian kids in regards to their lives and their encouragement and how important that is. Next slide. Here, leading Bible studies and being involved in devotionals, baptisms. Pre-COVID, we'd have 2/3 to 3/4 of our kids are baptized. COVID just really messed everything up. The kids weren't going to youth activities. We saw a drop in our conversion rate, but we had 3 that in January, 3 that were baptized, along with probably about 7 others from the congregation. So that we want them to see and experience what God is doing in their lives. So next slide. In favor with man, we have 2 therapists that we work with. They're members of the church. Well, we have one right now. We're looking for another therapist. So if anybody knows a counselor that would like to come to work for the children's home, we're looking for someone. But the counselors, this is here, Dustin, he's our major director of professional services. He does all the intake and that, but all the kids have individual counseling on a weekly basis. When I came there, none of them were having counseling. I said, all the kids need counseling because they're moved out of their home. There's a lot of anger issues. We have to help them to work through that. And so they have individual counseling on a weekly basis. We do group counseling and we do family counseling, trying to rectify and mend the relationship between the child and the parents. And so let's go to the next one. One of the things we wanted to do is to find out, are we doing any good in regards to working with the kids? And, are we making improvements? So we have this self-assessment that we do, and it measures, there's 16 different areas of therapeutic concern. School problems, these are the areas that they need counseling in. School problems, family problems, depression, self-esteem, personal stress, confused thinking, guilt, father problems, aggression, disturbed thinking, mother problems, friend problems, memory loss, drug use, alcohol use, suicide. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And what we do, so we do this assessment when they first come in, and then I know this slide says upon discharge, but after a year we give them this self-assessment again and have them fill it out. If you take a look at here on the left side, in the green over here, 48% had 10 to 16 areas of therapeutic concern that we had to address in counseling and helping them to work through. If you look over here on the right side, a year later, the green is all gone. None of them have that 10 to 16 areas of therapeutic concern. If you go back over on the left here, at the time of placement, 47%, that's the red, had 5 to 9 areas of therapeutic concern. And then you go over on the right side here, 17% have 5 to 9 areas of therapeutic concern after a year. But then you take a look at the time of placement on the left, the blue, there was 5% that had 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern. But you look on the right, look how large that has grown. Now there's 83% only have 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern. the reality of it is we probably all have 0 to 4 areas of therapeutic concern in our lives right now. I mean, there's some things that we might be going through that are traumatic or whatever, but we know we're doing something to help the kids, and helping them, to relate with people and to learn how to have appropriate relationships. Next slide. Campus, this is Pratt Management Company built this office building, and when they called up years ago and they said, Randy, can you use carpet and doors? And we, at that time, our office, we had outgrown our office, and I said, and we had a modular building donated, kind of a 24 by 60 split in half, and it was donated by another company, and I thought, well, we need to set the school up. And I said, well, we could use doors and carpet from this company. And and I said, well, we're trying to set up this modular building, so we could use this carpet and doors. And Franny is her name, called me from this company, called back. She said, Randy, tell me about, you want to set this modular building up for an on-ground school. And so I told her what we're trying to do, start an on-ground school. And then she called back. She said, well, we're looking for a project. How about if we set up this modular building? I said, that's fine. So I'll bring my superintendent out. He looked at it, and I called her back, and I said, what did Jim think about setting up this modular building? And she said, well, he looked at the building. He said, it'd probably be easier just to build a new school building than set up that modular building. Would you be all right if we built you a new school building? And I said, no, friend, that'd be great. That'd be wonderful, And then she said, I want you to draw 3 plans. Bare bones plan, the medium plan, and the ultimate plan. The bare bones plan is set up the modular building. The medium plan would be to set up, how was it? I have to go back. They would build a new school building, and we'd set up the modular building for a farm manager's house. The ultimate plan is to build a new office building, set up the modular building for our farm manager's house, and then to convert our old office building into the on-ground school. Well, she called back and she said, Merry Christmas, we're going to build you a new office building. They built this office building for 6,000 square feet, but when we presented it, it was 4,500 square feet, and they looked at it and they said, well, we don't build anything that small. Can you make it larger? I just said, Lord, just dropping things in our lap in regards to how people just from the community have been good to us and helping us do what we do. Next slide. Community involvement. Let's go to the next one. We started a thrift store. It's really been the more we got into community, the more people donated stuff, and it was kind of like, what are we going to do with all the stuff that keeps coming in? How do we turn it into cash? We had auctions for 9-hour auctions. That was one day, and then we went to 2 days of auctions, and then we're going to 3 days. I remember I approached the board. I said, we need to start a thrift store. Wow, why are we starting a thrift store? We don't ever shop at thrift stores. Why do we? That was shot down. Well, 5 years later, it kept growing, and one of the board members said, you know what? I think we need to start a thrift store. I said, yeah, I think we need to start a thrift store. We started a thrift store, went from a 4,000 square foot building to now a 12,000 square foot building. And go ahead and go to the next slide. And the next one, you can see inside of it, people have been so gracious. They pull up and they drop off. They'll say, here, take what you want, and whatever you don't want, we'll give it to Goodwill because we like what you do. It's just, the community has just been very gracious to us. And go to another slide, their picture inside. We had one customer come in and said, yeah, my wife and I went into your store, and we were walking through, and my wife was doing this. He said, what are you doing? And she said, well, this doesn't smell like a thrift store, so we like that. It's just a reflection upon the children's homes, it's a reflection upon the church, and it's just a really unique environment for them to go to shop. We do food runs. Here we go across Idaho, again, doing a large food run from just about Oregon all the way across, picking up food. Here's a bunch of kids that are unloading the U-Haul, and it's interesting to watch them to carry in boxes of food because they're looking and eyeing, what are they going to be eating? They're trying to eye it out. But anyway, go ahead. Time-wise, Coloradans, we have a car club that comes, that did a car show, and I'll kind of talk about that a little bit in their sermon time too. But they come out, they had it in town, but then the city started charging more for permits, and then they had to have trash people to come up after they have the car show, and then they would have to have extra police. And they put this car show on, and the net proceeds would come to the children's home. And with all of these permits, it began to really eat into their net income or what they were going to give to the children's home. So they approached us and they said, "Can we do the car show at the children's home?" I said, "Yeah." So here's a picture of our main street with 225 cars. Then they go to the next slide. There's about 450 people that come out onto our campus. And here's they're passing out the awards and things like that. And our kids get to choose cars. And it's pretty unique, experience for our kids. And the people, I mean, I was in the hardware store and a car guy come up to me. He says, your car show it's the best of all the car shows that I go to, it's just neat to get people on campus. Let's go on to the next one. We have a big gala in October. We started off about 120 people going to it. 75% were church members, 25% were not attending it. Right before COVID, it got up to 528 people were registered. I'm going to say 75% were non-members of the Church of Christ, and the other 25% were members of the church. But the community has just embraced us and has come in, and God has just been very, very good to us. Next slide. The next slide. Getting involved in the community. We have a business before hours. We provide on a breakfast, and about 90 chamber members come out and they see the home. And they always have this question: can we see one of the cottages? Because I know what's going through their mind. You're thinking of orphanages back in the 20s and 30s, of large mess halls, large dormitory style living. And they come back and they're just amazed. This is neat. The kids were showing their rooms and they were excited about this and that. And it just dispels that connotation. Here in this one here, Will was a boy that came in and angry at his dad. And I asked him, "Would you share what the home has done for you?" And he got up, talked about what the homes did, and he said, "Then I became a Christian. I was baptized, and this is what the home has done." And I just thought, go for it. Let the community know this is what we do and how we help kids. Next slide. Transitional living program. This is time-wise. Quickly, we're looking for a transitional living program. This apartment came about, a little sign, and we had some other plans that all fell through in regards to helping kids that graduate from high school. We looked at this here, and we found out it was a member of the church that owned it. He had 3 cash offers for it, and the lawyer that's handling it said, "I don't know why he's not taking it." Anyway, we ended up purchasing it. He had 7 cash offers and 1 for $150,000 more. And he said, "You guys are getting it." So God has just blessed us. And so another thing, next slide, you show it, keep going. There's a new cottage that's being built by the Home Builders Association. We just dedicated that in December. And they said, after we did dedication, they said, "Okay, when's your next project?" And they said, "We want to build you another house." So God has just blessed us in so many ways. So thank you for being part of what we do. We appreciate it. I know I didn't leave any time for questioning, but I'll be back there if you have any questions. Thank you.